What's going on, Locked On Grizzlies fan? And if you've been anywhere near your phone, you may have noticed that, or through your laptop, if you've been anywhere near the news cycle, you've noticed that the Grizzlies and the Grizzlies fans, you may have just got an early Christmas present. Me and my co-host Joe Mullinax, we're gonna break it down. Grizzlies-Warriors Christmas Day coming up on Locked On Grizzlies.
Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Locked On Grizzlies fans? It's Damichael Cole here, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee, and joined for the first time.
Let's go.
Joe Mullinax is here, the new co-host for Locked On Grizzlies. I think this is going to be fun. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Damichael. I'm excited to be kicking this off with you here. For those that don't know me, I was the site manager for GrizzlyBearBlues.com for about 5 years. I've covered the Grizzlies for almost a decade now, dating back to 2013 is when I started over at GBB. So I left the blog in the very capable hands of Parker Fleming, and now I'm fulfilling my destiny, it seems, several years in the making here, working with the Locked On Network at Locked On Grizzlies. And I couldn't have asked for a better co-host or a better person to take over for, and Sean Coleman. It's a wonderful setup and a wonderful first topic for us to discuss here, Damichael, like you mentioned in the open, an early Christmas present for Grizzly fans.
Yeah, an early Christmas present indeed. According to Mark Stein out there, we're expecting that the Grizzlies will be going to the Bay Area, going to play the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco. And that's no surprise. That's no surprise at all. But before we get into the talk about that, we want to appreciate you, Locked On Grizzlies fans and viewers, for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies each and every day that you tune in. Make sure you continue to subscribe and watch any and everywhere. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. You just Google how to listen to podcasts, and we're Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find Locked On Grizzlies there. But thank you for your continued support. We recently reached the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. So we, again, continue to appreciate you for that achievement as well, and continue to comment. Me and Joe will be looking at those comments, and we will use that feedback to helping the show go forward. But speaking of feedback, Joe, over the course of the offseason, there's been a lot of feedback on this Grizzlies and Warriors thing, and if this Christmas game would actually happen. And we're here now, Joe. The reports from Mark Stein, Shams over at The Athletic kind of reported it as well. Christmas Day in the Bay Area, Golden State, Memphis. Joe, what do you think?
My first thought, of course, was about my co-host, my new co-host here, who's going to have to work on Christmas, which is disappointing. And then once I realized that you were going to be in the Bay Area for a Christmas game, which is going to be an amazing experience for you. You still have to work on Christmas, but it's going to be a cool experience. I quickly realized that I'm probably going to record an episode of Locked On Grizzlies by myself at like 1 a.m. on the East Coast. So after feeling sorry for myself for a bit, I thought about, I mentioned earlier how long I've covered this team, followed this team. I lived in Memphis for several years, 2011, 2014. And to reflect back on all that has transpired for this team, going back to the Pyramid days. I know obviously you're from Memphis, Damichael. You remember all those times. To think about where this franchise started and comparing it to where it is now, a legitimate superstar in Ja Morant. I loved Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, the core four. They never were this. Ja Morant is a legitimate superstar. They have a team that is projected to be very good for the foreseeable future. They have a core in place that allows for them to have that mark. So to have a legitimate superstar who's very social media savvy, who I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a moment, to go from all of that and to now be in a place where the National Basketball Association, and I pointed out on Twitter before we started recording, they're competing with the NFL for the first time on Christmas Day. I think either the first time ever or the first time in a long time. The NFL has, I think, 3 games on Christmas, the exact same time frames as the 5 traditional NBA games. So the National Basketball Association has chosen the Memphis Grizzlies as one of the teams, one of the markets, one of the organizations that they're going to go up against the king of professional sports in the United States of America on Christmas Day. That is remarkable to say if you're familiar with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah. And this is the first time in Grizzlies franchise history they will be having a game on Christmas Day. Joe mentioned it. I grew up here in Memphis, and Joe has covered, this Grizzlies team for a long time. And I've known just growing up here, Christmas days, we watched basketball, but it was Lakers. It was Celtics. It was Knicks.
Lakers, Celtics.
It was
Knicks,
LeBron James.
Inexplicably the Knicks, still the Knicks.
And the Knicks are, once again, despite their lousy season, they're back on here Christmas Day. It must be
Julius
great.
Randle has remarkable pool, apparently.
Yeah, that big market pool is what it really is. Because I tell you what, me or you probably could be the point guard on those Knicks teams at this point to get them to on those Christmas Day games. But I mean, the Grizzlies, we've talked about the flair for the excitement, dramatics, and all that, but it wasn't going to be right if it wasn't against Golden State. Dallas and Memphis was tantalizing, yes, but I wanted to see that in the playoffs. We didn't get it in the playoffs. Now it's not as tantalizing for Christmas. The Ja and Luka stage has not really, taken its course yet. And then who else was there? Well, the Suns, there's not enough history there.
The Timberwolves, maybe, after the playoff series. But again, then you'd have 2 weird markets that don't necessarily drop.
Exactly. And that's where you got to think about it. It's all about, what do they say? It's all about the bottom line at the end of the day. And Timberwolves, they're on the rise. Anthony Edwards, rising star. He has the charisma. But after they made that trade, you might want to sit back a little bit on the Timberwolves. Let's see how this next season plays out for them. But the Grizzlies, the Warriors are the franchise they've had the most, experience with over the past couple seasons from that back and forth perspective. Going out to the Bay Area and covering that playoff series, I really realized how, I don't want to say cocky, but that fan base has a little, they got a little bite to them, Joe. And
I know all too well from Twitter.
You know it all too well. And one thing about that bite is overall in the playoff series against Golden State, the Warriors remember that series very well. They don't count that play-in win that the Grizzlies had. Oh, that was without Klay Thompson, whereas on the Grizzlies side of things, it was like, oh, the play-in was the start of something. And then, there was this season to build up on it. But Joe, a lot of storylines here. What's your favorite one? Because you got Andre Iguodala, and Andre Iguodala being a member of this Warriors team, we saw him get booed in the FedEx Forum last season. Then you got the Draymond Green and all of that with Ja, and we'll talk more about this later from a deeper perspective. But a lot of storylines to look forward to, Joe.
I think Draymond Green is my favorite because he knows exactly what he's doing. He's one of the smartest people, one of the smartest players in the NBA right now in terms of working the media. John Morant's obviously up there on social media in particular, but between the podcast he does, I know he does a lot of guest spots on TNT. Draymond Green is very savvy when it comes to the image that he's portraying. He's not out of control in terms of, I don't get Dennis Rodman vibes from Draymond Green, where it's just, I'm going to do what I want to do. He's very calculated, in my opinion, just from watching him from afar. And it's almost like he wanted this, right? It's like he wanted this particular matchup. I think there's an underlying respect between these two teams. And I know we'll talk a little bit more in the next segment about, is this really a beef? I have questions about that at this stage. I think that especially Draymond and Ja, they have some respect for each other. You got to remember there's a lot of Michigan State ties between Draymond and Jaren and X, Xavier Tillman. I'm skeptical that they actually dislike each other that much, but I do think that they're two competitive groups, and that's where that beef, as it might be referenced, comes from. Is, Golden State is the old lion, right? Obviously, the reigning, defending, undisputed NBA champion. The Grizzlies are trying to knock them off the throne, and the Warriors are not interested in that at this stage. And Golden State won that first round here and in the previous playoffs that just concluded a couple months ago. But I think that the important thing to point out is the competitiveness. I see this as a game that the Grizzlies are going to show up and want to win, whether or not Jaren Jackson Jr. is in the lineup. And I think it's one that Golden State, Golden State and Boston, that would have been the traditional Christmas championship rematch. The Warriors are going to want to knock off the Grizzlies because the Grizzlies see them themselves as the heir apparent to what the Warriors have. Golden State's not ready to let that go yet.
Yeah, great point. And Golden State may not be able to let that go just yet. But Joe, I'm going to tell you something I'm not ready to let go, and that's Built Bar. Built Bar, I can't get enough of it. Locked On Grizzlies fans, what my favorite is. It's the white chocolates, cookies, and cream. And if you haven't tried those Built Bar Puffs yet, what are you waiting on? Because that's also one of the greatest joys. And guess what? Locked On Grizzlies fan, there's a new flavor out there. Let me introduce you to your new favorite because it's delicious. It's indulgent cookie dough, and it's covered in chocolate, just like all the other Built Bar options that we talk about. And that's the cookie dough chunks puffs. See, it has a light and chewy texture, but it's real chocolate dough chunks. And of course, like I said, like the Built Bar puff, like the white chocolate cookies and cream, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. Remember, one thing about Built Bars is, yes, they want to taste real good, but they also emphasize the health factor as well. Go get your Built Bar right now. Run over to built.com. Put in the promo code LOCKED15. Again, that's built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15, and you'll get 15% off of your next Built Bar order. So one more time, built.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15. Go try out that cookie dough chunk puff. That's the new one that everyone's talking about. I tried it out. I love it. And I think you will too, Locked On Grizzlies fan. But we're talking rivalries here. And we're talking beef. I think that's the word that Joe used. And there's a lot of factors that we got to take from, right, Joe? There was, if you want to use the most recent thing, there was Klay Thompson kind of throwing a shot at Jaren Jackson Jr. without saying his name. He never said his name. Everyone just knew what he was talking about when he referenced a tweet from March when the Grizzlies beat the Warriors, and Jaren Jackson Jr. tweeted out strength in numbers. There's that sequence. Then you want to go back a little bit further, maybe just a week earlier, Joe. There was the Morant, little tweak of the knee. And, people question, was it a dirty play by Jordan Poole? And the Warriors weren't entertaining. Like, come on, It's not a dirty play at all. And then before that, there was the Dillon Brooks play where I was courtside. I heard some of the things Steve Kerr had to say towards Dillon Brooks' direction, and it wasn't nice. So there was the Dillon Brooks play that resulted in the injury to Gary Payton Jr. And then there were some more things. I mean, we talked about the Andre Iguodala situation where Curry and Draymond and John Morant all got involved, and exchanged some things throughout that situation. But overall, there's a lot of built-up history here, Joe. You just touched on it a little bit, but with Memphis and Golden State, I know some people we've talked about this. They've said, it has to be more playoff seasons and things like that. But do you think there's a real beef here?
Funny you should ask that, Damichael, because in honor of our first episode together, I put out a poll on Twitter earlier on Sunday, and I asked the Grizzlies fan base. I've been around social media through grizzlybearblues.com when I was over there for a while. Perhaps I've been around for too long on that particular bird app. But I asked the question, do you believe the beef between the Grizzlies and Warriors is real? Because you laid out the history there. And I do think that it started as real. I wonder the authenticity of it at this stage. And so do a majority of the voters in the poll, thanks to everyone that participated. The three options I gave to Michael, and I'll ask you the same question now. I know you've been busy, so maybe you didn't get a chance to vote. Option one was yes, as real as can be. Option two was started that way, but not now. And option three was been fake beef always, like beyond beef. Like it wasn't ever real, okay? The lead winner was started that way, but not now at 43.8% of voters. A very close second was yes, as real as can be, 41.3. So only 15% of folks say that it has always been fake. Kind of Vince McMahon, Triple H, WWE kind of storyline creation. A vast majority think that it either still is real or that it started that way and now they're just kind of playing into it. I think I'm leaning towards the second option to Michael. I think that it started that way for all the reasons you just outlined, but they see the opportunity to kind of build upon it. And, they know TV contracts are coming up. They know that the ratings improving can only help the salary cap keep climbing and climbing and climbing. Why not build some intrigue and get people to tune in, especially on the East Coast, for a 10 o'clock game on Christmas Day? I think that it's still a little bit of that competitive nature like we talked about in the first segment, but it seems like it's turned up to 11 a little bit, Stone Cold Steve Austin style.
I like the WWE references, Joe. You'll learn over the course of these episodes that I'm a big wrestling fan, and I'll throw
Excellent.
a couple. We're
gonna get along just fine then.
Myself as well. But getting back to your point here, I think you're on to something, Joe. There's a respectful rivalry here, I think, and this is where it comes from. When the Grizzlies kind of started playing Golden State, and you have to earn a team like Golden State's respect. Think about Draymond Green. Draymond Green will throw those championship rings in your face quicker than you can blink, and he'll let you know he's a champion. And teams have to earn their respect. And Memphis beat up on Golden State the past couple seasons. Being honest, last season beat up on them, beat them in the play-in. Then 2 seasons ago, this past season, beat up on them in the regular season. I believe the Grizzlies won 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4. But Golden State only beat the Grizzlies once this past regular season. The Grizzlies own that matchup again. So with that being said, the Grizzlies have kind of started to earn their respect, and that from the fact that when this first started, Golden State probably was like, Draymond, who are these guys? And that's where you think about the respected beef. I think that's coming there. At the end of the day, these guys are super competitive. Ja Morant always talks about it. When he's on the floor, it's just his guys. Draymond Green, he's become more friendly throughout the league over the past couple seasons, over the past 3-4 years. We've seen him out with LeBron James. Whoever thought that would have happened in 2017, right? 2016. But at the end of the day, when they get on the floor, Joe, it goes out of the window. Like we saw Draymond Green quote tweet Ja Morant the other day, and he said, after the Christmas Day game, come over for dinner. But I guarantee you during the game, they're not going to say, hey, you still coming over today?
No.
Absolutely not.
They're not asking about is the turkey fried or in the oven roasted. They're not asking that question.
Exactly, Joe. And you mentioned it. You said it, Joe. Like the Golden State are these old Lions. That's one thing that's been curious to watch about Golden State. Yeah, Curry started off as this quiet little, guy who everyone just loved, this smile. He was so adorable, right? But now he's kind of taking on this. He's a killer, Joe.
Yeah,
he's a killer, and people know now. He does all the shimmy, and he went viral with the little bye-bye sleep thing he did all season, and during the playoff run. But he's a killer. Klay Thompson, the way he talked about Jaren Jackson, after winning that championship, those guys were not remembered that way at first. So with that being said, the bad blood is there. We saw recently Jaren Jackson Jr. posted a TikTok video of himself working out. In the background, Draymond Green quote. So again, it goes back to that healthy respect, because when I was out there in the Bay Area, what were we doing? We were asking Jaren Jackson about his relationship with Draymond Green. And he spoke highly of him. He said, it's a guy who helps him out. He also mentioned something else, Joe. He mentioned Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo came to the game at the FedEx Forum to watch those guys play against each other. But again, that chalk on that bulletin board with Draymond Green's quote is there when Jaren Jackson's working out. It's not up there just because they went to Michigan State together. Right. There's a respected rivalry here, Joe, and I think it's going to be fun to watch.
They are interested in beating each other. I think that they respect each other. You make a fair point there. I think that they want, like I mentioned earlier, I truly believe that the Grizzlies see themselves, and the Grizzlies front office might see themselves in this way. I've mentioned this before, Ja Morant being Memphis' Steph Curry. Obviously not in terms of the type of player they are. They're different basketball players. But in terms of how they're building the franchise, Ja is Steph. Jaren is Draymond. Desmond Bane is Clay. Those are three guys that are going to be in Memphis for the next decade if they do what they're supposed to do as a franchise, and if those players keep continuing to do what they're supposed to do, which by all indications they're going to, and the pieces around them will change, right? Maybe Dylan Brooks is here, maybe he's not. Maybe Brandon Clark is here, maybe he's not. These guys that are due extensions, different draft picks. When do they go all in? These are all topics for future episodes of Locked On Grizzlies, of course, here in the dog days of the offseason. But I think that they have their three guys, just like the Golden State Warriors have had their three guys. And when Golden State looks at the Memphis Grizzlies, it's probably fairly easy for them to see a lot of themselves in what Memphis is doing. And if the Grizzlies are able to find a way to finish this, right, and knock off Golden State in the next year or two, maybe things come full circle and they hug it out and we tip our cap to the Golden State Warriors dynasty. But again, Steph Curry, the killer, as you put him, he's not ready to do that just yet. And I do think that Christmas game is going to have a little more edge because of that Memphis reaching for the brass ring, so to speak, and Golden State holding it up, not letting them kind of reach it just yet.
Yeah, 100%. And we're talking about Christmas right now. We're talking about Christmas. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Christmas isn't the only time that we're going to see the Grizzlies and the Warriors meet on national TV. The schedule is coming out soon. The rest of the schedule is coming out soon. We're going to talk about the prospects of more national TV games for the Grizzlies coming up after the break. So, Joe, last season it was a big deal. It's a big deal. We heard all this talk, Ja Morant saying, hey, put the Grizzlies on TV more. Jaren Jackson Jr. talked about it. A lot of the players talked about it.
It's been a thing for a long time, even before Ja. Nobody cares about the Grizzlies. Why don't they want to watch Zebo beat up people? Well,
exactly. And guess what? Last March, the news broke by yours truly. The ESPN was going to come to Memphis, all access. And in that story, when I wrote that story, it was said by ESPN, this is just the beginning of their plans for the Memphis Grizzlies. So, Joe, I'm going to ask the question to you because we know now ESPN, we're not going to call it a love affair with the Grizzlies. We're going to say they know what the Grizzlies bring to the table now in terms of marketability. And at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line, right? Grizzlies have Ja Morant, top 3 in the NBA last year in viewership with Stephen Curry and LeBron James on ESPN's social sites. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Ja Morant. You think that's not being noticed around ESPN? I think it is. So with that being said, Joe, last year I believe the Grizzlies had 5 national TV games. They had less than 10 at this point when the regular season schedule was announced. I believe last year the Suns, the Lakers, I think Golden State, all were around 30 national TV games last season. Where do we think the Grizzlies end up this year in national TV games in terms of those teams? Where do you think they'll rank?
I'm going to make a bold prediction here. This is
Oh boy.
This is big.
Let's go, Joe. This is what they've been waiting on,
big.
Joe.
I'm putting it at 20 plus.
Wow.
And here's why. You mentioned it briefly there. Television and the way you consume media is changing. You know that as well as anybody in your role as a journalist in sports. And ratings are important. The way that you bring in 18 to 49-year-old males in particular is important in terms of demographics. They are looking to continue to find where the young people are watching their sports, where they are watching what is going on. And more, the people that are younger than me at this stage, the teenagers, young people in their early 20s, they are watching games differently than I do as a mid-30s male. They are watching on YouTube. They're looking at clips on Twitter, social media. All of these different things are becoming much more prevalent. And you made the great point. Only Steph Curry and LeBron James had a larger digital footprint than John Morant. That is not an accident. That is very much this young group of fans of basketball wanting to see John Morant play. And obviously, television is not going anywhere. The goal of them is to try to get these kids, these younger people that are embracing and engaging with what John Morant and the Grizzlies are doing in the digital realm and bringing them to television, whether it's through streaming, cable, whatever it might be. So John Morant and the Grizzlies are going to benefit from being the stars of that currently in the NBA. Are there other guys that can kind of take that throne? Maybe. Anthony Edwards has similar explosiveness and personality to John Morant. You look at Trae Young and you see the things he used, kind of cock your head to the side and say, why isn't he more popular? There's probably different episodes of Locked On podcast that we can listen to debate that. I think that John Morant is that guy for this generation. He is that dude. And until someone takes it from him, he and his Grizzlies are going to be the ones that benefit most from the changing landscape of how younger people consume their media. John Morant is a guy right now. And John Morant is arguably the coolest basketball player in the National Basketball Association. Combining that with how active he is on social media, it adds up to the Grizzlies having a bigger lens on them than ever before.
Yeah. The thing about it is we talk about John Morant and just his marketability and just his growth into becoming a superstar. Said this story a bunch of times throughout the season on Locked On Grizzlies. And we were in Orlando. John Morant got MVP chance. In Brooklyn, John Morant outplayed Kevin Durant, outplayed James Harden, got MVP chance. In New York, in the Garden, Madison Square Garden,
The Mecca.
They called Jaren Jackson's name, small roar. They called Desmond Bane's name, small roar, not much. They called Steven Adams' name, not much. John Morant's name, you would have thought he played with the Knicks. He's grown to that level, Joe. That's where he is now, as a superstar, as that player. And there's only a few players like that. We in Memphis, yeah,
he's going to be. He might already be a single name dude.
Yeah,
Steph, LeBron, ja.
12, as a lot of people like to say. 12. It's simple as that, Joe. 12. But here's the thing. We in Memphis know it all too well because we've seen it over the years. You go to the FedEx Forum, when LeBron James comes, there's some people, those diehard Memphis fans, look with a side eye and like, why is that entire section filled out for LeBron James? I know you've seen it, Joe, and same thing with Steph Curry when he comes in. It's that whole section. Or when Kobe used to come here, it used to be the same way. Entire section filled out for Kobe Bryant. And that's how it's looking. When I was in Atlanta, when I was in Houston, in Atlanta, that's Trae Young's house. Every kid screaming from across the floor, Ja, Ja, Ja. In Houston, John Morant is hurt in March. He's sitting on the bench. And you have guys yelling all the way from under the basket, hey, Ja, hey, Ja. I mean, that's where he is, Joe. This is on the road everywhere, and this all goes back to the original point. On TV, the Grizzlies are becoming one of the more marketable teams, not only because they have this exciting player, but they have an exciting style of play. They play up and down. They were number one last season in transition points. They had a flurry of plays, whether it was John Morant's highlight block against the Lakers, his highlight dunk against, the Spurs, and he dunked on Malik Beasley in the playoffs, which is the one most people remember because it was on national TV, and a flurry of other plays. We remember the play against the Washington Wizards where Desmond Bane got the chase down block, and John Conchar threw the ball to Jaren Jackson Jr., who threw the alley-oop windmill to John Morant. I mean, there are a bunch of different plays to take from, but I think all of that factors into just the style that they play. When I talk to the people at ESPN, the decision makers, when it comes to this national TV stuff, they mentioned the Grizzlies are a bunch of young, fun dudes, and that factors in. I agree with you. We're talking 20-plus games. Outside of Golden State, and of course, the LeBron James effect, Golden State, I could see the Lakers, maybe the Boston Celtics, since they're coming off of a finals appearance as well. Luka possibly, that'll be interesting. We'll come back to that if Luka or Ja gets more national TV games. But I think the Grizzlies are firmly in that top 7 range, top 6 in terms of national TV games, and that's never been the case before, Joe.
Never. There were times where they would have maybe 1 or 2 national TV games, or they would get flexed in later in the season because, again, the grit and grind Grizzlies had some pretty good teams. They had a 56-26 season. They made the Western Conference Finals. So they would, I guess we'll put the Grizzlies in, because they're playing the Spurs and they're both good in March in 2013, right? Like that is how it happened. Now it's going to be a schedule release in August where you and I are having a conversation. We're like, holy crap, they are going to be on ESPN a lot. And that is something that I think the Grizzlies fans can really take pride in, that they have that legitimate superstar. They have an organization that in just 3 years' time, Damichael, I always remind people of this. 3.5 years ago, it was bleak, man. It was bleak. You had a general manager that we didn't know the direction. You had a bunch of guys that you didn't know what kind of value you were going to get for them. And to go from that place to be here and truly entering the golden age of Memphis Grizzlies basketball, it is a wonderful time to be a Grizzlies fan.
It's a wonderful time indeed to be a Grizzlies fan. John Morant, most improved player in the NBA, second round finish against Golden State, and a lot of that team is back, Sean. And we're talking about, national TV games. Another way you can keep up with that is through Locked On NBA. So we appreciate you always for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen. For your second listen every day, make sure you go over to Locked On NBA because we talked about it. The Grizzlies are so good now that the Locked On NBA podcast is becoming very pivotal because you want to
be on there more. We're going to be you and me.
And we're going to be there.
We're going to be guests on that show because they have to, because the people want to know about the Grizzlies.
We're going to
Who
be
knows better than us? Not me.
And Joe has been on there. Joe has been on the Locked On NBA podcast. So with that being said, the Locked On NBA podcast, that's where you can go to get your updates on every team in the NBA in just 30 minutes. So you're getting straight Grizzlies content here. You go over to Locked On NBA, you can get a rundown of what's going on, not just with the Grizzlies, but the teams, the contenders around the Grizzlies. So the Nuggets, the Clippers, all these teams, the Warriors that we're talking about that could impact the Grizzlies next season from an outside perspective. Locked On NBA is where you go to get that. But thank you again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. This week will be very fun. The NBA schedule should come out this week. Me and Joe will have you covered with that as well, on just covering what will be the biggest surprises. What will be we talked about how the season, this past season started off very home heavy. No Jaren Jackson to start the season this year. All of that will play into how we look at the Grizzlies' overall schedule. Joe, do you have anything else to add?
I just want to say that I'm very excited to be on with you. I'm appreciative during this transition. You've bared the weight of this, so I appreciate that. Hopefully in these next few days, everything will be finalized, and we are going to be in a position where, we can really embrace this partnership. I think we're at the precipice, the point of a lot of good stuff here, Damichael. I'm excited to be on with you.
Man, I'm excited too. I think this is going to be very fun. We're wrapping up our first episode with me and Joe here, so we appreciate you, Locked On Grizzlies fans. Keep tuning in to this partnership. We're going to have you covered not only through the rest of this month in August, but preseason basketball is on the way there also. There's a couple things on the Grizzlies side that there's going to be some news that comes out throughout the course of August. We're going to have you covered as some of that stuff gets unveiled as well. But we appreciate you again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Come back to join us again. I'm Damichael Cole. That's Joe Mullinax. Thank you again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies.